We're excited. Welcome everyone. My name is Tony Verde, and I am the chair of TAG's Data Science and Analytics Society. And I'm excited to introduce our session today. It's going to be a fireside chat. And we're excited to have our own Beverly Wright. And let me go ahead and present this real quick. Our own Beverly Wright hosting, but TAG Data Science Analytics, we're presenting return on data, extracting real value from analytics. And we basically wanted to have an opportunity to highlight organizations and teams that have some quantifiable metrics on return on investments, having implemented advanced analytics and what the real value has been to the organization, whether that's bottom line revenue, whether that's cultural value, whatever type of value it is, we're excited to talk about that. So Beverly Wright, he's the Chief Analytics Strategist. She's also a longtime board member for Data Science Analytics Society, and she's also the host of our podcast, TAG's Data Talk podcast. And if you have an Amazon or any type of device with a podcast service, all you have to do is ask Alexa to play TAG Data Talk, and it'll go out and find it. So that's something that I don't think a lot of other societies offer. I think we're the only one that has an ongoing podcast with a session every month. If you go to the TAG website and you go to our society page, you'll have all the information that you need about our podcast. We're excited to have our guest, Thom Ives, and I'll let Beverly do most of the intro, but UL is a company, a brand that I think anyone who's ever plugged anything into an outlet in your lifetime, you're probably familiar or you've seen it. It's like, gee, I wonder what that UL stands for. So I'm sure we're going to learn not just about kind of his world, but about some of the exciting things that they're doing and how they're gaining value from advanced analytics. Obviously, we can't have any of these events without our sponsors. So I wanted to thank our society sponsors, first Integra Connect and Emory University. And also for this event, we have a great sponsor, Celonis. And Celonis says this is not the first time they sponsored an event for data science and analytics. I believe a couple of years ago, they sponsored one of our Data Science for Good events. And so we're excited to have them on board again. And again, for those of you that just joined, if you go out to the chat, Celonis will be raffling off a gift card at the end of this session. You do have to be present to win, but all you have to do is click on the link, fill out the info anytime during this session, and then they're going to be choosing a winner, and again, then announcing it at the conclusion of the session. All right. So without further ado, I wanted to go ahead and introduce Chase Massione, and Chase is with Celonis, and I'm going to give them an opportunity to talk a little bit about what they do, and again, we really appreciate their sponsorship. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Chase.
Thank you very much, Tony, and thanks everybody for joining today. Also want to say thank you to the whole TAG Data Science and Analytics team for putting this together and having us out to sponsor again. We're big fans of the work that you guys do, especially the education that you do in the community and your close ties with some of the universities and colleges. Academic Alliance is a big part of Celonis's culture. And we were actually founded originally by 3 master's students who stumbled upon new technology while they were doing a student kind of research program. And with that in mind, I think that what the topic for today is in terms of return on data is something that's also kind of near and dear to us and a core principle of what Celonis actually does. So, 10 years ago when our founders were still those master students, what they were tasked with was going into a regional broadcaster and improving some of the business processes there. So in IT service management, kind of like a customer service process, if you want to think of it that way. And they quickly ran into some issues with being able to view the data they needed to do their job. A lot of the analytics and BI solutions that they had at the time served kind of more as scoreboards than anything else. So they told you if you were winning or if you were losing and kind of where you ended up at the end of the day, but they didn't necessarily tell you where you could improve or how you got to those outcomes, and they had to rely on a lot of kind of reported data. They had to go and interview people, and it was made extra frustrating because the processes that they were trying to improve were all run in business systems where they knew there was objective data that they could be using if they just had the right solution to be able to visualize and kind of contextualize that data. And fortunately for me and for our company, they did eventually find some research about a technology called process. It's kind of a computational practice where you reach into all of those different business systems and pull out the breadcrumbs, the footprints and timestamps that all of the people in your organization leave when they're interacting with those systems. And then they use that data to create a visual representation of exactly what your processes or operations look like. It's objective, it's every possible version of it. And starting with that activity, starting with the outcomes, means that at the end of the day, you that kind of Monday morning problem of coming into the office and everyone showing up with their metrics and telling you what the problems are, but not being able to tell you why or what to do to fix it. And instead, you're able to see objectively exactly why you ended up where you are and what you should be doing to fix it. So you can do more coaching instead of being a statistician at the end of the day, right? Or a sports reporter. And I think that not only makes use of data that is kind of laying around in these business systems a lot of times and not being used, but it makes all of the analytics and reporting that you're looking at more valuable by not just showing you where you ended up, but how you got there. And so we're excited to be a part of this because of how closely it does kind of dovetail into what Celonis does. If anyone has any questions about Celonis or what that looks like, I'm happy to show it to you. So feel free to reach out to Julia. We can get that set up. And then, as was said earlier, we do have the drawing, so make sure you register for that. Without any further, I'm going to hand it over to Beverly to introduce Thom. Beverly?
Thanks, Chase. If you want, feel free to put Julia's email in the chat so that people can reach out if they have questions about Celonis and kind of what kind of cool company you guys are. So thanks for being a sponsor again to this Tag Data Science Analytics Society event about return on data. We're super excited that you guys are here. We've been chatting about what is of interest to people right now. Like, what are we seeing right now? And I say there's like this data community that I'm a part of. It's called the Data Community Grows Together. And Tom's in that as well. And as we were talking about this, we said, gosh, people really just want to see a return on their data, return on data. I said, yes, that's it. So that's sort of how we chose the topic. And Thom, really excited to bring him to you guys. Dr. Thom Ives is a person that I would describe with 3 different attributes. One, he's very, very collegial. Like, he understands the importance of engagement. And you'll see in his talk how he talks about sort of the business side and the non-technical side, and how that sort of pushes culture and environment for making things effective and making things stick. So I definitely would call him collegial. Second is that he's very passionate. Like, he's not just gonna, well, if you get it, great. And if you don't, no big deal. Like, he's very passionate about his work in his field. And I love to see that. And then third, he's creative, which is interesting because he's got a very technical background. Thom, how'd you do that? So to be creative like that and to really think through and problem solve in almost a sleuthing kind of manner is a really rare combination to a technical person. So his collegiality, his passion, and his creativity are what we're bringing to you guys for this talk on return on data. So super excited. Thom, I will let you take it away.
I feel like I should ask how to contribute to you on PayPal after you said all that. My gosh, you hit me on all the things I most care about. Let me share my screen. Let's see. There we go. And I'll be looking sideways. I apologize for that, but it's probably the best we can do. Oh, wait, do you still see this? Is that working?
We see it looks like your browser or your drive window.
Ah, yeah, let me fix that. So we'll go back over here.
There we go.
Is it? Okay. And then
Yep.
I'll just pull that. Oh, now I can look straight at you guys.
Well, now
and
we've
go
got,
into-
now
How's that?
we've got something else. We don't have the slides anymore.
Oh, my bad. Okay, I'm going to unshare.
We got your Slack.
Yeah, it looks like we got your Slack.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I see what's going on now. Let me.
There we go.
Well, yeah, I'll just do sideways. That'll work.
You could do present, and it should allow you to show the.
He was trying to get it on a different screen so it could look forward at the
There
camera,
you go.
but you got a
Okay,
good side view.
Yeah, thank you. We're seeing it now, though, right?
Yep, that's right.
All right. And boy, Beverly gave the best intro to this talk. If we're really going to get maximum returns on data, we do need to be more collegial, or we just need to have a more together spirit. Too often we work in silos and we don't really appreciate what each other do. And the business leaders cannot understand all the talent around them. And so it really is on us to explain things in a way they can appreciate it more. And everyone that's dialed in today gets the value of data, but how do we communicate that more effectively to our organizational stakeholders, our organizational leaders? So that's really what this is about. And let me just read this: how a more together spirit can bring greater value to business through machine learning development. Now, notice I didn't say predictive models or predictive analysis. No, it's through machine learning development. And that'll become clear as we keep going. So I normally give this talk with my good friend and buddy, Greg Coquillo. He's a top voice on LinkedIn, and he deserves it. He's like the most reliable newscaster of the latest, greatest things going on in AI and data science. But he's an industrial engineering background, and he works at Amazon now, and just an all-around great guy and a great student of data specializations. And myself, I'll let you read this, but basically I'm a geek. I love being a geek. I grew up building things in my garage, and I built things that would and worked on things that would run around in the 100+ acre field that was across from my house. Even though I was in Dallas, Texas, I was just so lucky because this field went undeveloped the whole time I was growing up. So I rode motorcycles out there, and we were crazy. Even before airsoft, we had BB gun fights, which was insane. So I grew up with a love of building things. And just because I work in data, I never stopped thinking I was building things. So our mission here is to change the focus. You'll hear this quip of, oh, the number of machine learning models that end up in production. I'm like, so what? You know, did you tell a story while you were trying to develop that model? Maybe you realized you didn't need the model because the visualizations were so good. I just think we need to take the conversation in more dimensions. And so we're really about getting any organization's return on data increase, because we're collecting this data. Hopefully, as we become more data literate, we are having a passion to make it cleaner and more accurate. But we just want to promote good business and data science collaboration, because that's the only way we're going to have an ever increasing return on data. So the agenda is a business originated data driven focus, then showing how we triage business issues with a data perspective, that is, a co-exploration of business needs and current data assets, collaborative data strategy, the spectrum of model usage and delivery, and then an example of business and DS collaboration. And then we bring it all together. And Beverly, you're gonna have to be my Greg today, because I'm already feeling a little siloed here myself, but we're two geeks, so we'll see how it goes. So what does it mean to be business originated and data driven as you're seeking a return on data? Well, you just can't know for sure how to identify a problem without the data to back it up. I mean, if you think about even the scientific method, what are we basically doing in a nutshell? We're gathering evidence and then we're making inferences. Well, what is evidence? It's a type of data. So without the data, how do we know what inferences to make? So we triage our business issues. Well, Why do we do that? Because we have limited time and resources. We even have limited data. So we start with why for the business. Then what with ground truth data? What data do we have on hand? Then we can begin to think about the how with data storytelling and machine learning. And I would submit to you that the data storytelling is really part of the machine learning development process, but why are they like a hand of cards that data scientists are holding close to their chest? We want the whole organization to understand the process we're going through so they can be aware of the 80% of what we do, what value there is there. And I would submit to you, this isn't like your classic 80-20 thing. 80% of our work possibly is 80% of the value to the organization. So we do a co-exploration of business needs and current data assets on our journey to this. And what does that look like? Well, we triage the business needs, then we assess the data assets, then we can devise a prioritization matrix from this. So let's go into a little more detail. What are the business priority needs? This is our why. Then the what is the state of our data? And let's give some examples of that. So in other words, the spectrum of current data availability. Do we have all the data we need on hand, just some of it, and some needs to be collected? Or there's no data on hand, but we really should start collecting it because of our business needs. So we find maximum intersections. That is, we create a prioritization matrix with these three things we just discussed. Well, what would that look like? Okay. Let's say we've got business triage 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, this is just a toy example, of course, but then we have data assets over here. And these weights for our data assets, they relate to how much of that data we have on hand. Oops, excuse me. So now we look for these intersections out here. They're just the multiplications of these. Here we have this column, this row. Each of these cells is just the multiplication of these things. So as you can see, this was the highest business triage element, but it required, which data assets did it require? It required just data 1 and data 4. Well, when we start to calculate that out, we realize, oh, you know, I have a 0.5 here, but because of the amount of data I have and the amount of data that business triage element 2 needs, I should get started on that one right away. However, there's another effort that needs to go on. Let's start increasing data asset 4 so that we can address business triage element 1 as soon as possible. And Bev, I think it might be good. I want to make sure people are clear here before I go on. Just in case I didn't explain something clearly. And if you think we're good, we can go on.
I do want to do 2 quick comments. One, there is some background noise, so I'm not sure if you can remove any of that, but if I understand if you're in a place.
Yeah, one second.
Okay. And second, if you could go back a couple of slides to the why. I actually think that's the hardest thing right there is you ask just about any, even experienced data scientists, they want to start with the data. They usually want to start with the data.
And this is where it comes back to that collaboration with the organizational leaders or stakeholders.
Yep.
The data scientists can't come up with the why, but they can work with the organizational leaders to do that. And that is why this matrix is not a data science effort. It's a collaborative effort. We have.
Yep. I want people to realize how brilliant that just that simple, you know, why, what, how really is, because that is a huge challenge for us in getting the return on our data because we start at the wrong place.
Yeah, and collaboration is hard. I am one of the most I was about to say constructively lazy people I know, but that's not absolutely true. I'm one of the laziest people I know. I'd love to just sit in my chair and geek out all day, but real data science work means getting my butt off my chair or getting on a Zoom call nowadays and talking to business leaders. So my manager and I, who leads the business I'm in, we have a bi-weekly return on data talk because of these kinds of things. So they know that, oh, while you're developing this huge AI, is there some organs we can take from your AI and start using, since he can't die and he's got some cool piece parts the other organization can use. But make no mistake about it, this involves data scientists, business leaders, organizational leaders, data engineers, probably salespeople. This is a organizational wide strategy, in my opinion. And thank you, Bev. And by the way, the why, what, how, that's totally stolen from Simon Sinek. I love him. He's brilliant. Can't say enough good about Simon. Okay, collaborative data strategy. So now we've explored that. What might a collaborative data strategy look like? Well, the goal of exploratory data analysis, which we do in the process of developing machine learning models, is to ensure high quality, consistent data. But it's not just for data predictions, it's also for storytelling. And the whole phase, not just the predictive modeling part, the whole phase can answer critical business questions. And I'll explain how. So what's a collaborative data strategy look like? By the way, I love to make analogies all the time. I figure, Bev, you and I spend so much time studying the stuff we study, learning to get skilled at it. Why not conceptualize it, abstract it, and benefit from it in other areas? So let's apply this to control system design. What is one of the key philosophical points on feedback control systems? It's that if I don't get frequent feedback to my system, it can get unstable very quickly. So let's remember, data scientists or data specialists in general, not just data scientists. One of my brilliant friends, or our brilliant friends, Bev, Scott Taylor, he would say, I'm not a data scientist. Kate Strackney would say, I'm not a data scientist. I'd say, you guys are data specialists extraordinaire. We need all of us that love data and see its value and know how to manage it well and use it well, working together. Well, we are all servants to greater mankind. And if we're not getting really frequent feedback, hey, here's where my work's going and why, I'm aligning with this thing we agreed with. Am I on track in your opinion? And if they say, oh, you know what, that's really cool, but I was kind of thinking this. Okay, great. Let's discuss that. Let me make sure I'm clear on it. Okay, I'll go back and keep working. That's the kind of feedback control adjustments we're looking for. And then frequently share your visualization during EDA and machine learning development steps. We have to do a lot of visualization while we're going through the machine learning development process. And we learn a lot during that. We come up with a lot of, for example, routines to automatically clean the data. We need to be sharing that with the whole organization. And if we're really going to increase data literacy across the board, everyone needs to be understanding how to keep the data clean as it comes in. And for those cases where it's still dirty, how to clean it after we've gotten it. So that's just one example though. But we're doing all this visualization, learning about the data, learning its distributions. We should be sharing all of those visualizations along the way. And I'd like to encourage something. I think all these shiny dashboards, they're great. But what's most important is the graphs, the charts, the data, the tables. If you're worrying about making it shiny before you share it, please stop doing that. Just get it out there and then you can make it shiny later. Help the business understand feature conditioning and any feature engineering. Now, this gets into our language. what we say as data scientists is we're doing the processing. But what we learn as we condition the features, for example, is we scale the features and we do some initial modeling, not necessarily with the model we'll use in production, but just a model we're using to help us understand the data better. We get these weights in those initial models that tell us how important each of the features are. We do this very fancy math to get into eigenspace we call principal component analysis. It's hugely beneficial. And there's so much that everyone can learn from that analysis. You don't have to understand how to do it to benefit from it and understand what it gives you. And then there's times where we have to actually add features. We engineer features from existing features. And by the way, in case you're not into the vernacular, every time I've said feature, I just mean input, okay? Just simple, the input we would use to the model. But we might not know what model we're going to do yet. We might not know which column in a table is a feature and which one is a label yet, label being the output. We're exploring the data. We're understanding how the features relate to one another. We're understanding which features are most important to some predictive aspect. But these ones that we have to engineer, that's instructive too. It says, oh, there's an interaction between these two features, or this feature, we have to put it through some function to get it to predict well. And all of that is great feedback to help the business understand the inputs, the data we're collecting, because even before you see the predictions from the model, you can start acting on what the modeling, the process of modeling and getting the weights is telling you. So, and this brings up the point I'm trying to make. Models used for exploratory data analysis, they may be different from production models. For example, yep, we may have a ton of data now and we can use a deep learning model and it's the most accurate and it generalizes well. That means it doesn't go crazy when we get new data. But at the same time, I'm still going to use a real simple model just so I understand the data better, so that I understand that, because once you go to deep learning, we have to apply all these they're not complicated, but extra steps to do explainable AI. And I figure just use simple models. Also, it doesn't mean that you put it in production. It just means those simpler models are helping you understand your data better. And then we need to help the business team understand the relevant importance of the features and translate the feature weights into business actions. When Denzel Washington was in the movie Philadelphia with Tom Hanks, he was playing a lawyer and he would go up to expert witnesses and say, and explain it to me like I'm a fourth grader, because he wanted to make sure he knew his case was solid. He wanted to make sure the jury got it. Lately, I've heard a better term. Explain it to your grandmother. You know what? We need to be so enriched in the concepts we're using in data science that we can explain it like our grandma's running the company. And we can explain feature importance and feature weights in these simple models. Okay, now, what is the spectrum of model usage and delivery? It's quite broad. Sometimes data scientists are just running the models and sharing the results in a dashboard or something else. But sometimes data scientists run and automate reporting of model results as necessary. They're just doing this from their desk and serving up the results. But there's other types of model deployment. We hand them off to the stakeholders and they use them to predict things as they go. And then we update those models as needed. Sometimes these models are put on devices. And sometimes the deployment gets so specialized, we need to have our own type of machine learning ops like developers have for DevOps. And in the most elaborate sense, we're working with a giant software team and we're servants in that overall structure. So, but none of those take away from the fact that as we're doing this machine learning development, we shouldn't give a lot of feedback to everyone else in the organization. So what would be now this is a very simple example, but what would be an example of a business and DS collaboration? Now, this is a toy example, but it really hits home. Let's say you want to reduce customer churn. Okay, we can create a model for that, but if we have the data, we can create a model for that. So a first model on this was just based on price. And that would have been probably logistic regression. But how could you improve the model? Well, you start talking to customers. Oh my, is that data science? Yeah. Part of what we do, it's not necessarily part of everyone's training, is go out and do very careful surveying or help the organization design a survey. Well, just by getting on the phone though and talking to customers that left, that were willing to talk to you, you kind of discern after several conversations, oh, quality per dollar, shipping speed and ease of order and reorder relative to competitors. Those were key things involved in churn, and they weren't in the model. Let me ask you something. Do I have to start predicting churn based on those new features to get value from those new features? If I discovered that as a data scientist, here's my spirit. Hey, organizational leader buddies, I just discovered this, thought you'd want to know it. I'm going to go work on a model, but shoot, you can act on this stuff right now, right? Yeah, thanks, Tom. That's that frequent feedback. Now we create new data collection efforts for these 3 new features. Why? Because we'd still like to get an indication, oh, you know what? This person might go over to our competitor. What can we do? But how can we get on the phone with them? So yeah, the model's still valuable. Now your churn model predictions and its features are more effective at retaining your customers. What have you done? Improving the quality of features and which ones you have leads to a greater return on data. But where did this start at? Exploratory data analysis. I would even say exploratory feature additions, right? And can continue into predictive modeling. So if we bring it all together, why do we need to think this way? It's not about increasing the number of models that go into production. It's about giving the business more value through good data storytelling and good database predictions. So good business and data science collaboration ensures ever improving return on data. And Bev, I think while we talk and maybe take questions, I'll go up to our matrix, because I think that one slide, if any of them, really kind of tells the whole story.
Yeah, I put it in the chat, like, to go ahead and start thinking about your questions. I know I have a couple, and I've noticed some patterns as a consultant. But I want to make sure people know, like, this is, if you can crack this nut, you are a freaking data science rock star. You are a rock star, because if the challenge, I mean, I've seen this over and over and over, and I'm sure you have too, Tom, that people get all excited. They do a really killer data science project. They get fantastic solution, and then it falls apart. It's seen as like an R&D. It's seen as a nice to know. We don't want to produce nice to know. We want to produce something that's going to provide a return, and that's been the challenge. So if you can crack this nut, you're a rock star.
Yeah, I remember landing in industry after my PhD and kind of thinking, wow, we don't talk much. And Bev, this is so dirt simple, but it's taken me, because I'm really blind and ignorant and powerless and injured and corrupt. It took me a couple of decades just, oh my gosh. And then I realized, oh, I really can learn a lot from control system design and reinforced learning. I just need to conceptualize it and throw it onto other areas.
Yeah, I feel you. Can you re-describe the rows and the columns on this chart again to make sure that everybody's following?
Yes. So this is what everyone in the room, and I mean the key people coming into a room, these are business triage 1, 2, 3, and 4. In other words, these are what the business perceives to be the greatest needs of the business right now. They're efforts, their tasks, their investigations, you name it. But this is the data we need to support all of these. Now, for business triage 1, I'm saying I need data asset 1 and 4. For business triage 2, I'm saying I need data asset 1 and 2. For business triage element 3, I need data asset 2 and 3, etc. Data asset 1 and 3 for 4. Now, this is all contrived. This is fake data. But what I'm saying is, well, yeah, you might have said business triage 1 was most important, but I know as a data scientist, I'm telling you, I only have 25% of the data I need to start doing any modeling. Now, these that are at 1.0, that doesn't mean I have all the data I want. It just means I'm going to talk real fancy now. I have a stochastically significant amount of data to begin my work. But if I reach the central limit theorem, am I confident I'm not going to have any data shifts? No, I'm just saying I can get started. A prediction is better than no prediction. So, but we want to keep, even these that are at 1.0, it doesn't mean we don't keep collecting those and tracking, are we arriving at the central limit theorem yet? And once we arrive there, we know the amount of data that approximates the central limit theorem, and now we can shift to the latest data so we're not unfairly biased by time changes to the data. And so this is why creating this as a team, not just the data scientists, but the business and organization. I keep saying organizational leaders because I think data science can benefit any human organization. So that's why I keep phrasing it that way. But basically the leaders of your organization, the data leaders, the data specialists of all kinds, you name it. And the data governance experts in there. So again, what showed is, hey, let's get started on business triage 2 because it's the strongest intersection. But at the same time, we really need to amp up our collection and our emphasis to the whole company. When you're collecting this kind of data asset, be very careful. That is gold, that's platinum, we need it. Yeah, and Bev, you're right. It's funny, I can code all day, but put me in a room and conversing, with several smart people at the same time. And after an hour, I'm like, I got to go to the bathroom, but I'm lying. I got to go take a mental break. That's hard work, doing all that juggling of making sure you're being considerate to everyone and you're communicating clearly and you're answering questions for each other and you're really trying to understand each other. That's hard work.
It really is. It really is. And for a lot of people that are left brain and quants, kind of like we are, it can be very taxing and draining. I think an example, just along the columns, it would be something like, I know we have someone on the call right now that's customer advocacy for a major brand. So customer advocacy might be a business need. If you're in supply chain and you're trying to optimize the supply chain or your route scheduling or things like that, those are examples of business needs and then the data assets to support them.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Thank you, Tom.
Yeah. Do we have any questions out there? I'd love to discuss more, or even thoughts. It'd be great.
Yeah, so James from Aging Aircraft Solutions asked, can you explain the BT weights? Is that business priority or importance?
Yeah, what I've forced myself to do here, and you could do it other ways, by the way, but this is, if you've ever worked with the decision matrix, which I include everyone on the call today to go learn decision matrices. It's one of the many tools in the Lean Six Sigma tool set that black belts use and stuff. I'm on a call. Sorry, I have a big family. And but here I'm just forcing myself to say, I'm going to give myself a total budget of 1.0. So business triage 1 was the most important. It got the lion's share. Business triage 2.3, but you'll see that all these add up to 1. But really, the exact way you do this is not important. It's that the whole organization appreciates and embraces it. They buy into it together as a tool we're sharing. as a tool we're using to guide our why and our what. I hope that helped.
Yeah. Someone else noticed that if you look across at the data assets, you might think like, oh, it's a data asset, it's going to have the same value on a per need basis, but it doesn't. So can you help us understand how the same data asset, like data asset 1 is valued at 0.4 for one problem, 0.3 for another kind of problem, 0.1 for,
Yeah.
So
these weights are different from these weights. So the weights for the assets are just saying, do I have a stochastically significant amount of data to begin saying I can use that reliably? But at this point, this value is just saying, oh, this is 1.0 times 0.4, so I put 0.4 here. This is 0.4 times 0.25. It's basically a fourth of 0.4. So that gets 0.1. Now I add up all the scores from this business triage. So this gives us the business triage priority. Again, 1.0 times 0.3, 1.0 times 0.3, add those together, I get the 0.6. So that's all that's going on here. And Greg explains this better than me because he takes more time on it. I always assume everyone thinks spreadsheet like I do, or SQL-ish. But yeah, it's very simple calculations. In this area, all of these are calculations for the corresponding rows and column weights. And then down here is the sum of each of these columns to tell you which one to go work on. But again, these are equally important. We need to grow our data assets if we're going to get a better return on data.
This is a good way to at least start to think about what's even possible. And I almost never see this actually done, which is very unfortunate. We try to encourage, like at Access Group, we try to encourage our clients to like stop for a second and think about the why are you doing this? And is it even possible to answer right now? But like I said, people want to just jump right into the data and just do what they can. So this is a great exercise to kind of pump the brakes a little bit.
When you think of how much energy we put into all of this data work, what a travesty to not really agree organizationally and broadly. Why are our data scientists working on that? Oh, we can tell you that. We can easily, quickly define that.
Yep.
But can people do, well, we were in a room or we were out to lunch and we decided, oh, how did that compare to all your other business triage? What is business triage? I mean, we need to start really, this is battle. The generals need to pull in all his advisors and get a plan.
Yep, and that is a challenge many times. Like that was another question I had is, can you show the map with all the dimensions of how to get return on data? That's actually my favorite visual that you have.
Oh boy, help me. Was that?
It's like the paint splash. Yeah, there you go. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So what would you consider the most difficult for many companies? Not necessarily for UL, because y'all are perfect, of course, but what would you consider the biggest challenge that you see people, really struggling as a barrier?
It's kind of like saying, this patient just came to see me, and what's their biggest problem? It's that they're not doing this at all when they should have been, and it's this right here, the triage of business issues. This basically the co-exploration. It's this collaboration, I guess, getting in the room, really thinking about, okay, we've got all this data, we're entering the data age. Let's not get behind. How are we going to benefit from it? Well, we're going to have to collaborate. Data scientists, we need to help you understand what's keeping us up at night, and you need to help us understand your processes. We don't want to become data scientists. We just want to appreciate what you're discovering along the way and how it can benefit us. Think about it, Bev. If we do 80% of our work on data cleansing and formatting, that information is also valuable to the business leaders or the organizational leaders.
You tend to want to rush through that. I just started playing a game called pickleball. Have you heard of it, Tom?
Pickleball?
Pickleball. Yeah, like
Ah,
I happen to have some pickles right here, but pickleball. Unrelated to pickles, but there's a certain reason why it's called that. It has to do with a dog. But anyway, and in pickleball, the ball is almost like a wiffle ball or whatever. It's softer than tennis ball and kind of, I don't want to say it moves slower, but it's fast, almost like ping pong, but it's a mixture of ping pong and tennis. You know, you play it on tennis court. And when you first start playing like me, you tend to rush in. You just want to go in and hit the ball. Like you want to hit it and hit it real hard. But actually the hardest thing is to just slow down because you have more time than what you think. Like the ball's coming and now, you know, you can walk toward
I
it.
know exactly what you mean.
I just want to like go over and, you know, you drive yourself you wear yourself out, you know, by racing toward it and rushing in. And I feel like we do that with data, especially if you move into, I have a friend who just accepted a position at a pretty major company and he's leading their AI efforts he's mostly doing training, but he's leading their AI efforts and there's all this data and he's sort of a mentee of mine. And so he's like, I want to start right now. And I'm like, okay, first of all, chill. So is that sort of what we're sort of saying is you got to first of all kind of chill, like triage, think about what you have, think about what's important. Just close your laptop for a second. No, don't do it right now because then you'll disconnect. But close your laptop for a second and actually talk to people.
Okay, Bev, I don't think it's fair of you to expose to this audience what I learned the hard way in my career. That was really underhanded of you. No, seriously, even from the time, it seemed like I worked on my PhD and I was working on really challenging cutting edge stuff at that time. And what I learned from that, I've continued to use it. Computer screens, staring at computer screens, worst way to solve a problem. When I was working on my dissertation, my PhD research, Texas A&M University, even though it was hot as hell there, I'd pick up my clipboard, a pen, and I'd go for a walk. And Bev, I kid you not, at least 400 yards, and ideas started flooding into my head. Why? Because I wasn't staring at my computer screen. I almost put an explicative in front of that.
Well, people ask me all the time, what's your tool? What's your favorite tool? What do you see as the most useful tool as a data scientist? And I say the whiteboard.
Now I say Inkscape. It's my favorite drawing program. Same thing.
Yep. Very good.
Tony, do we have any more questions or should we yield?
Yeah, so I'll open it up if anyone else has any additional questions. I mean, so far we've had a great session and I like the flow. So I'll give it a couple more minutes and again, remind folks if you haven't already to go out on the chat and click on the link to register for a gift card.
I'd love to know from the participants, if any of you have, you know, oh gosh, I knew this, I know this kind of thing, and I've tried to do it, but I just haven't been able to make it stick. If anybody wants to share without, you know, divulging too much information, but if anyone wants to share, I would love to hear your story. Or maybe you found a way to make it successful.
And while we're waiting for someone, I hope someone will bring this up. I want to, how do I put this? This could be an uphill battle, but if you treat it, I hate to use this analogy, but it's the first thing that came to mind. Treat it like a waterboarding, just, or planting seeds, let's put it that way. Just be patient, treat it as a long-term effort. Just a wonderful Muslim friend of mine recently taught me something as I was helping her with something. She said, you know, we're told this in our culture. We overestimate what we can do in a year and we underestimate what we can do in a decade. What I'm trying to say is if you start talking this way, just politely and patiently, give it time. It may not even happen in the first year, but if you keep working on stuff on yourself quietly and sharing it, just say, you know, I was thinking this, what do you think of this? Plant the seeds. You never know. You might be the agent of change in your organization, but don't get discouraged or think you should just give up just because people don't listen to you the first year or two. You might really transform your organization by being consistent with it and continuing to benefit from it yourself in your own role.
Yeah, that's a good point about patience. The number one thing I hear from former students, actually, this is why I started the nonprofit Athletics. Let's see if I have, yeah, I do. The Athletics is a nonprofit that leverages data science for good, and TAG's a big supporter of data science for good, for social good kind of efforts. But one of the reasons I started it was people were coming back and they were saying, my company, I can't figure out how to make an impact, you know, and there is a way to make an impact, but it's not going to happen overnight. So one of the things I told them, because they didn't feel fulfilled, is try working with a nonprofit on their data. And so those sort of complement each other in that they can learn skills about, you know, data science for social good to have an impact and potentially saving lives. And they're able to benefit that toward their company, but it's not an immediate thing. You can't go in expecting to save the company $1 billion in your first week.
That's right. In fact, I'd say if you start small and personal, but share what you're doing, ask for take a business leader out to lunch. So this is my favorite way to get started. And I'm not saying I've done this well yet, but I'm learning to do it. So I'm a student of everything I preach and teach. I'm just a student of it. Wish I could say I'm an expert or I've had this amazing, you know, success with it. This is stuff I stop and think, and how could I do that better? And it's this. I look back and I think, wow, if I'd have just asked that business leader out to lunch and even offered to pay and then say, I just want to know, what are you struggling with? What keeps you up at night? What are you worried about? Okay, you know what? In my time, in my free time, I'm gonna go look for some data that can help answer that and see how I can help. Would that be okay? Of course, Tom. And then but you do that frequent feedback with them. In other words, start it as a micro experiment with one business leader. You're just showing, I'm not going to tell you what I think is important. You're running the business. You tell me what you know is important. I'll find a way to get data to help those concerns. And you look for that optimal intersection. You're saying, okay, he had these 4 concerns, but we have this data. Oh, that's the best intersection. I'll go work on that. But I won't wait until I have this big, fancy, shiny thing. I go to him and say, hey, I know this is crap, but this is where I'm at. I found this data. I'm looking at this. Is this going a direction that looks like it might help you? This is great. You know what? If you could go, what can you do with this? Let me go explore some more. And I'll come back and tell you as soon as possible. Keep doing that frequent feedback loop with one business leader.
And that actually, that brings up a question that I had around just a whole change in culture, right? So going an organization that's kind of seeing this return on data, and all of a sudden you're creating these data citizens throughout the organization, right? And so it's almost like, you know, you have these, well, different analogy, but CIA and recruitable assets, right? Gathering intelligence for you, and but also, you know, they're maybe a little bit more of a super user, so they can you know, pack that information or unpack it and be more valuable. Have you seen that in organizations that are really seeing a return on their data investments? Is that kind of creating this data citizenship culture?
I think you just put it so well, Tony. We're data evangelists. By the way, Bev, I do like to come up with the terms, don't I? Return on data, data evangelism, really? Data evangelism. It's too much fun for me. But yeah, Tony, I see you as a fellow data evangelist. That's all we're trying to do. But we can't just tell people there's benefits from data. We can't just tell people we can get a better return on data. Well, instead of preach it, why don't we be like St. Francis? Preach the data gospel at all times, and when necessary, use words. Well, let's preach with, hey, I'm going to go do a data project for you, data leader, because I see you're stressed. Let me show you how data can meet your needs. And you're right, that's how we build these data champions, these fellow data evangelists. One last thing. When young data scientists ask me, or people entering the field, what do I need to do to become a great data scientist? Care and avoid burnout. But wait, what would you care and avoid burnout? Well, if you care, you'll go learn the basics and really understand them conceptually, because that will take you far into the future. Mm-hmm. So but care about the people more than the concepts. The concepts are to serve the people.
That makes sense.
I love that. I'm putting that in the chat. People ask me all the time, like, what do you see as the number one attribute or characteristic for a fantastic data scientist? And I think it goes along with care. And the burnout is kind of a long-term going concern, like to make sure it's scalable. But what I usually say is curiosity. I think if you care, that sort of breeds a curiosity. Leaders don't want to have to tell you every single thing to do. They don't. If you're in analytics or data science, or if you're leading a team in that area, the business people want to tell you, this is my problem. They don't want to tell you, because this is my problem, I need you to frame that problem. I need you to figure out what data is available. I need you to do some feature engineering and use this technique. Like, don't expect people to tell you every single thing. That if you were curious, you're going to be like, I wonder what happens if we try it this way. I mean, I was like the queen of analysis paralysis at one point, where especially I love financial services. I love the data that comes from there. And so it would be like, let's look at it at the branch level. What if we look at it at the customer level? What if we take out and only look at it by segment or something? And if you're curious and you start asking these kind of questions because you care, you're actually trying to find a good answer, that you'll become a data scientist that really rocks. Go
on ahead.
Just one more quick was, you mentioned, well, I don't know what you called it, but there was like this, ta-da, there should never be like, ta-da, because like Eric Schmidt, who is a PhD that works at Coca-Cola, he used to work at Coke, went to ISG, now he's back at Coke, and he leads like marketing analytics or something like that. Global leader, great guy, fantastic. He was explaining to my students, we were doing a project with them, that there should not be a ta-da. You should have nuggets that you reveal along the path. And there have been plenty of times where we'll go to him as our client and say, okay, well, this is crap. Like you were talking about, Tom, like this is crap so far, but this is kind of what we're seeing. And the business person will say, oh, wait a minute, what's that? What's that little piece? Show me that little piece again. And they'll start picking at the crumbs a little that help us form a better meal in the end. But please don't think that you're supposed to disappear for 12 weeks and then say, ta-da, here's the answer. That is not great data science.
I think too often we think that if we create the report and put a fancy binder around it, or we create the PowerPoint and make it look really shiny and slick, that's adding value. Can I speak Cajun? BS. Just show a crappy bar chart or a crappy, line chart. Just say, this isn't shiny yet. I just care about the content. I want to see if it's going the right direction for you. We can make it shiny later. It's the content.
Yep. I think I interrupted you before, but you were gonna mention something, Tony. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just checking here for additional questions. So I just wanted to put it out there. If anyone has any, we've had some good comments and some great questions. And I tend, if you're interested in this chat history, by the way, well, we're recording the event. So I believe you, Bong, that we'll record the chat history as well. Is that correct? Bong may be muted right now, but yeah, I believe that we'll have this in perpetuity if someone wants to access it. So, so if no one has any additional questions.
I had one more thing, which is what final advice, Tom, you participated in a lot of my panels and, and podcast interview and all that kind of stuff. But if you had to give one final piece of advice for the participants to say, what one piece of advice would you give for someone trying to help with return on data?
You know, it's really hard to learn all the math and the coding and get good at that, become a data specialist. Even if you're not coding, you're using Tableau or Power BI or Google Data Studio. You're learning to work with SQL. You're learning to get good at cleaning data and automating the flow of it and creating the dashboards. That's hard stuff. So be patient and gentle with yourself. But if you don't really stop and try to get deeper on the concepts and how you can use them to enhance humanity, you are missing the mark. And I'm cautioning everyone because I've made more mistakes than anyone I've met in this field. And I've watched my predictive analytics transition from predicting multi-physical systems that haven't been built yet, how they're going to perform, to using data to making predictions and using data to understand trends and stuff. And I've made every soft skill mistake and every antithesis to what I presented on this morning, but I kept caring. I kept thinking, I want to make a difference. If you want to make a difference, yes, you do need to get good at your skills, but stop and really appreciate the conceptual, abstract side of what you're doing and why. And if you do that, you will grow to be an exceptional data evangelist.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Tom. Big round of applause. I'm not sure if we have the reaction thing on here, but I'll just give you a real applause. So thank you again.
Thank you.
It's so insightful. We always enjoy, your content and hearing from you and your enthusiasm. And like I said, your curiosity, your collegiality, and your passion are what stand out to me and make you a great data science community member.
Thank you. It was a great honor to be with y'all. I really am glad that you enjoyed this talk. And kudos to Greg, my brother. We developed this presentation together. He gave it at DSGO, and we've given it a couple of times together.
Yeah, including University of South Carolina. So that was really good when y'all did that too. Tony,
Yeah,
I think we have lots of great stuff coming up for TAG. Are you
Yeah.
to do the drawing?
No, absolutely. So just a couple of just closing remarks here. First of all, if you haven't, you go out to the chat. The link was posted a few times. Make sure you register for the gift card. And so I'm going to give Julia and Chase an opportunity to maybe select a winner, run it through the random selector and select a winner. And then before we do that, I'm just going to share our screen and show you all kind of what we've got coming up from an event perspective. Hold on just 1 second here. So we've had our 2 events so far this year, Explainable AI, and I actually posted a link for those that are TAG members. I posted a link to that event, which we had back in May. So we had some references to Explainable AI in the session today, but that was ironically that was our most recent event. Obviously, Return on Data today, fantastic event, and you heard Beverly talking about data science, AI for good. So we've been partnering with Analytics now for, I think this will be our 4th or 5th year where we do a data science for good event. And so that's coming up August 10th. That'll be our next event. We're excited about that. We also have a supply chain event. We do an event with the Transportation Technology and Supply Chain Society every year. So we're excited about that. And then our big marquee event, at least at this point, is going to be an executive roundtable that we're going to be having. This is going to be an invitation only roundtable with the Data Governance Society. And so we're going to talk about one of the topics will be the intersection of data governance and AI ops. So we're excited about that. That's coming up in October. And with that, I will go ahead. Let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen. By the way, if you go to the tagonline.org site, Data Science and Analytics Society, under the Society tab, you'll have access to all of the information in our society, information on our board members. If you're interested and you're a TAG member and you're interested in becoming a board member, would love to chat with you, and also information on our events, and of course our podcast, Tag Data Talk, which you can listen to all of the talks that Beverly has recorded over the last several years. Again, that's in the tagonline.org under the Data Science and Analytics Society page. Okay, so I will go ahead and turn it over to Chase. I guess, have you got a winner?
I believe we do. Give me 1 second here.
All right.
So it looks like our winner for the drawing today is Charlton Minifield. It looks like Charles Minifield based on the participants here. So Charles, congratulations. We'll send out an email to you to get you the gift card digitally here shortly. And thank you for everybody that signed up. And for those who stayed till the end, there were a couple other people whose names came up first who had dropped already. So Charles, you got lucky there.
Awesome.
Yep.
Great. Thom, thank you again. Great session. Really enjoyed it. Beverly, as always, thank you so much and everything that you do for our society, for TAG, and for the whole analytics community here in the South. So Ubong, thanks for recording the event and for TAG support. And Julia and Chase, again, thank you so much for your sponsorship. And that's all we had for today. We'll look forward to seeing you guys hopefully live soon, live and in person. But for now, everyone have a great weekend. Enjoy the weather. Stay cool. Cheers.
Guys, have a great data set.